All right, let's talk comics. Hey, baby, I like it like that. I like it like that. I hope I can be heard. I'm trying a new microphone. I just lost my guy. All right, there we go. Hey, gang, it is Chris Peel. I am writer creator for the Nostradamus Effect. Live on Fund My Comic right now, by the way. 10 days left for the campaign. So today we have a special guest. I'm very pleased to present the writer creator for my favorite book this year so far, Mr. Fabrizio Aiello. Hey, buddy.
What's going on?
Not much. You can hear me okay?
Yeah.
Excellent. I'm trying a new microphone. I used my laptop's mic, and it was like I sounded like I was underwater or something.
Yeah, those are pretty rough. You got to give your voice as much advantage as possible. At least for me, because I have an obnoxiously high voice.
I need some gravitas.
Yeah, I wish. I tried to run filters on my mic before.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Hey, look, I just want to dive right in. What I'd really like to start with first, I know we have a topic that we're going to discuss, but I really would like to discuss a bit on Horace H. Hoover, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, for sure. I'm always up for talking about anything.
Okay, man. Now, as you know, I've not been shy about the fact that this has been my favorite book of the year this far. Where did this come from? Where did this? I'm sure you have been asked this a million times, but where did this come from?
Yeah, it's to some degree it's very hard to decipher where an idea comes from. Not to sound too pretentious, but there's this great David Lynch quote or snippet of an interview, and he's like, you don't come up with ideas; they're sort of floating in front of you, but it is up to you to grab them and make something with them. And I just feel like that's kind of what it is, whether it's music or art or whatever. So that being said, all you can really do is examine the stuff that you like and that you've experienced throughout your life. I just sent a couple of answers that somebody had sent a little questionnaire for me. And I mean, I'm just I'm a combination of British humor, Douglas Adams, that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Real dry stuff. But visually, I love ornate Gothic, sort of Renaissance, Baroque art. I love, but I also love humor. And I love the occult stuff. So The Ninth Gate's one of my favorite movies.
Oh, yes. Mine too. Love it.
So it's just you mishmash all that stuff together, and it's that's what it is. But the character itself, if you'll allow me a minute to go into it.
Absolutely.
So I was doing a series of drawings, big pencil drawings, and they were kind of character studies, but they were exaggerated proportions. And I had done a big circle character, and then a long, and then I'm okay, I'll start with a square-ish or a rectangle shape. I sit down and I just do a suit, big rectangle, and I do the ear, and the ear's really high up. And for a split second, I'm oh, that's funny. That looks like a old canister vacuum cleaner. And then I draw the hose, and I'm oh, that's, and then the plug, I'm oh, that's funny. I chuckle, and then I set it aside. And I just, for the next, I don't know how many months, every time I was doodling, I would always doodle this, character. And it's sort of he kind of grew. And I would get these flashes of scenes totally without context. Just scenes of this character sitting down with his wife, drinking tea. But obviously he can't drink tea because he's got a big And I would draw them, and I'd stick them on my wall. I'm I don't know, maybe someday I'll do something with them. And then I always make the joke. I'm like, after about 6 months, my room looked like the third act in a serial killer movie. Like when they open the door, and
Oh,
I
that's
was like,
funny.
I need to do something with this character. So that started the ball rolling.
That's the universe telling you something right there.
Yeah. So
That's awesome. That is awesome. I got to tell you, man, that the second I saw the first image, I just bumped into it. Like I just literally was I was doom scrolling, and I saw the dude with the freaking canister vacuum head, and I was just like, okay, this is mine. Like that just sucked me right in. It's such a great character design, and I mean, you see it, and you just immediately want to be like, okay, I need to know more about what's going on here. Uh,
it's it's niche within a niche, though. I will say, like, you have to be open to like taking that first step. Because I go to conventions, and I mean, there's lines of people that just walk by and they don't even. It's almost like they don't even see the artwork. Like to them, they have like this filter of like superhero, and if it's not like a specific superhero with tights or whatever the case may be, it's like they don't even, their eyes don't even see me in the booth. So I will say this: the most people that are open to the book are other creators, without a doubt, or some in some creative field, whether it's writing, like I said, or music. Like they seem to be open to it much more than sort of your average con goer.
I think, and I can't help but draw this comparison. I think fans of the Tick would real. I think this would really resonate with fans of the Tick. It's different. It's not like it's exactly the same or anything, but far from it.
Yeah.
But it definitely has. There's a similar taste there. I mean, that was the Tick was my inspiration for Some Big Lumberjack. You know that's part of what got me into comics.
I wonder, and I totally agree. Like, I love the Tick, and again, it's not the same, but you can see elements of it, or you can see like the connection to some degree. Some people say Hellboy, but there's no humor really in Hellboy, so it's like you pull a little of this DNA, a little of that, and you kind of cobble it together. There is a part of me that wonders, maybe you can answer this, is like I do feel like Gen X was pretty unique in the like they trying to find unique stories and characters. Like we were always trying to find the most underground band that nobody heard of, the book, like comic book that nobody ever saw. Later generations, it's about like what's the most trendy thing, like what is currently on Netflix today that I can like gravitate towards and talk with about somebody. So I don't know if that's the case, but
No, I mean I mean, I can speak for myself. Obviously, like you're at dead on. You know, I mean, I refused to buy any X-Men comic book when I was growing up because my whole attitude was like, everybody gets X-Men. I don't want X-Men. I don't want anything to do with it. You know, so and that's when I looked for the really weird stuff. Like I showed in my little intro thing, I showed some covers of some of those books that were important to me when I was young. You know, like the Elvis Mandible and Tales of the Drunken Monkey and Tales of the Bully Pulpit. You know, which I mention these things and people are usually like,
so where did you grow up?
I was in a suburb outside of Washington D.C.
And so I grew up in the middle of Pennsylvania, like central PA, and we didn't even have a comic book shop. I had
Oh man.
a newsstand with like 10 comics, and that was my only exposure to comics until I went to
Yeah.
college, literally.
Wow.
So there is a big, proximity lends itself to what you buy and what you have
Absolutely.
access to. So yeah, I mean, a lot of that stuff that people talk about, I'm like, I didn't know that, because growing up, like whatever Mrs. Mulcahy decided to order like that month at the newsstand is what I got, basically.
Yeah, I was lucky, man. I had a comic shop that was within walking distance from my house, and I'd go there, every week, maybe multiple times a week. And I actually, the guys who worked there, they were kind of your typical comic book guy from Simpsons type, you know.
Yeah.
And I was collecting GI Joe, and the Nam, and boy, they let me have it every time I went in there, you know. And but the funny thing is, like, I stayed friends with those guys. I'm still friends with those guys. They actually own their own shop now, successful shop up in Maryland.
Oh, that's awesome.
But anyways, enough of that stuff. Let's get back to
Sorry.
Horace. Um, yeah, so that's one thing I was curious about, is just kind of, what spawned, this idea. And you're right, the ideas just kind of, they almost kind of stack on top of each other. So um, look, I am my own favorite subject, unfortunately. So
We all are, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Okay, so I'm going to use myself as an example. Some Big Lumberjack, the first book I did with Half-Ass Publishing, I came up with that idea from a Wizard magazine contest they were having about, create your own superhero. And I was hanging out with my buddy, and my nickname was Some Big Lumberjack in high school, and it was more of a reference to Monty Python. I'm a lumberjack now. I don't care. That's where it spawned from, and then it just turned into Some Big Lumberjack. If I did something stupid, they'd go Some Big Lumberjack, dang, 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 And then this contest happened, and I'm like, dude, Some Big Lumberjack. That's our hero, and we started just riffing on different characters and ideas, and then like a year later, I was like, well, why don't we do a comic book? Let's make it happen, and there you go. So,
and this was in high school, college. When did the comic book come out?
The comic book came out. I am a beauty school dropout.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to like the college thing. I just meant after high school. Sorry.
Beauty school dropout. No, it was college age years is when it came out. 2003. So I was in my 20s. I was told there would be no math.
That was still a great era. Like 19, I think it was 99 when I first did my first convention. But it just felt, and you can disagree or not, but it felt like if you had a table or a book at a convention, you could be plucked out of obscurity and become like a super, like the potential was there to be plucked out and just be a superstar. Like it had a really exciting atmosphere, having a table at one of those things. And maybe it was total overly optimistic attitude that creators had, but it just had a different feel. Like today it's more like, this is my book, I'm marketing, it's just a different sort of attitude.
I haven't done a con since 2008 or something like that. So I definitely can't speak for what they are like today, but you're absolutely right about how they were back then. And one thing that surprised me is when I moved to Dallas in 2001. I was really surprised at how big the indie comic scene was down here. I mean, it was massive. Like, there were tons of indie creators down here, and they were getting picked up. Like, Scott Kurtz. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He had a book through Image that was really hot at the time called PvP. Kind of, satirical kind of humor book. And he was kind of like the big name down here in Dallas at the time. But there was a few other guys, Nick Harrington, I don't know, and I can't remember. He did some stuff through Image as well. But yeah, so it was happening here in Dallas at the time. But I will say that when we did our first convention, I'd never done anything like that before, and our whole mindset going into that con was, we got to sell this book. We got to move books. So we went in there, we had an idea for like a pitch that we would do, and anytime somebody stepped in front of our table, we were like, "Hey, have you heard of Some Big Lumberjack?" Of course, the answer was going to be no. Have you heard of Half-Ass Publishing?
Yeah.
No. Well, now you're gonna. And we had this whole like he has the proportionate strength of a lumberjack his size. And da, 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 you know, it's just this, and we had no, like the guy across from us was so annoyed with us by the end of the day. He was like, I started saying your pitch. He has the strength of a goblin his size. Like he's like, oh, you guys are getting on my nerves. But we moved books, man. Like I'd say that's the big thing I noticed is a lot of the creators, they'd sit at their table, they'd be doodling, whatever. They'd look up, a person would be in front of the hi. If you have any questions, just let me know.
Yeah.
Or even just say, nod, hi. You know, we weren't like that at all. We attacked, but we made it fun. We weren't like, uh, you know, cheese ball sales guys or anything.
Yeah.
We made people laugh. And then when we did the Baltimore Con, we actually had a line at our table
Man.
of people, just because people were like, "What the hell's going on over there?" They hear people laughing, they see a bunch, then it just kind of. Now, if that's something that could even happen today, I have no clue.
I mean, I think so. I have talked to a couple of people that I've kind of bumped into a few times at cons, and they definitely do the. I don't want to call it a hard sell, but like you said, if they walk by their table, they're pulling them in and at least going over everybody. I don't do that, and completely up front is just because I think I started that way and I really tried to pull people in, and when I realized that the modern comic book con goer, like I said, isn't really into H.H. Hoover as much as I would like. So I'm like, all right, you know what? If they show even like the tiniest bit of interest, I will do that. But there are some people with just like blinders on, and they get a little upset almost if you kind of pull them from their Spider-Man quest or Batman quest. Which I have nothing against that. I buy comic books all the time, and I get it. So, everybody's experience is a little different. I've only done obviously Northeast cons, and I haven't done that many. A couple a year I've been doing, but you definitely tend to see like a pattern with the con goers, which is again very different than it used to be. Back in the day, you would I don't know, like this one con that I did do, Guar was the musical guest. Mm-hmm. Like I can't fathom that happening at a con today. Guar playing a Comic-Con, and in between all of the booths for comics, indie stuff, there were adult film stars. You know what I mean? Like,
yes,
it was such a
like that.
Yeah, totally different vibe. And because the different vibe, you get a different audience member. So
that had to have been a big show, though, right? The one that had the
it was pretty big.
Night. Yeah, because I remember seeing that. We did our first Wizard World show, and got a table there, and I was walking around, and I was like, what, but I was like, what the heck? This is comic books. What are they doing here? But there's definitely cons. Like there was, I think it still goes on here, called All Con. And it's not just comic books, like it's everything. We did one of their first shows, 100 years ago. And they had like Star Wars stuff. Like in order for us to have a table, we had to agree to do a panel. So we did a panel about self-publishing, and we got comped a table. So it was nice. And, I ain't shy about talking about what I'm working on, so that was fun. But they had like belly dancers, and there was all of this stuff. They had a comedian there, and it was pretty wild.
Yeah, so I just focus on the books, and whatever happens after that is kind of out of my hands, honestly. And the one thing I will say this is, there's like the Twitter circle of comic indie fans, then there's the YouTube fans, and then there's the con fans, and there's very little overlap. I've
Yeah.
found it's just not. Those are almost like 2 or 3 completely different spheres to some degree. So it's like you're starting from scratch at every aspect.
Yeah, and each audience has a different behavior. Like especially when it comes to conversion rates. So like when I first started with the Nostradamus effect, I was getting tons of likes, tons of views with my content from the book. So I was started boosting posts, thinking I'll drive traffic to the campaign page. On my first campaign with Kickstarter, I got like one backer from Instagram out of like with these, and I got like thousands and thousands and thousands of views and hundreds of likes. One backer out of that,
Yeah, that's
and the most I got, the most backers were driven by Kickstarter from Kickstarter's like algorithm or whatever is drove most of my traffic.
yeah, that's interesting. I don't want to gloss over this. So you had the lumberjack, and then have you been writing ever since? Have you been like, what have you been doing since as far as like comics, or is it like?
Um, no, I I basically stepped out of the whole comic thing. Um, I've suffered from God. I'm not trying to paint myself out as some weirdo here, but I've suffered from depression a lot. So I stepped out of the comic book because it just, the guy I was doing it with, he had to focus on other things. I had gotten engaged and was wanting to focus on that relationship, and I frankly didn't feel I didn't have the confidence to carry it forward myself. So I just let it die, essentially.
What brought you
One of my
back?
uh, what did there are two things, and I'm going to sound like a total ass kisser, but I really don't care. Ethan Van Sciver and finding Comicsgate and getting getting therapy, going to therapy.
Hmm.
Um, I was in a really bad place last year. I think it was last year. Yeah, and I finally realized I was in a bad place, so I went and finally got some, saw a therapist and got some help, and man, it just did wonders for me. It did a lot of good for me. It helped me see that I've wasted a lot of time, wallowing in muck, right? And I just that's when I got back into the Comicsgate scene and watching the videos again, and I determined I'm like, okay, I'm going to put everything I can towards making this happen, and I'm going to I first asked my buddy Tom if he wanted to get involved with this with me. He declined because he's got a whole life now. He's got a fiance and he's in another part of the country and all this, that, and the other, which, I respect his decision there. Um, and I mean, I've known that guy since high school, but just was like, screw it. I'm going to write it and I'm going for it. And I wrote it, and I was still riddled with doubt and started sending it out to people, and everybody was like, "Holy crap, man! This is the best stuff I've ever read from you, and this is fantastic." And people who I knew would not shy away from telling me, "You need to keep working on it."
Yeah.
And then when would reach out to artists, like I had pro artists reduce their rates so they could work with me on the Last Watch at San Sabah story. Uh, so when you have pros who are willing to do that to work with you, I mean, how can that not boost your confidence?
Yeah.
You know, I
I
mean,
mean,
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I think for a lot of people, COVID was a big turning point because you had to, everything was turned inward. And then at that point, it's like you're watching YouTube videos and people are doing comics or this or that. So it does seem like there was a refocus of people that had sort of pulled away from comics or whatever the case may be, and eventually come back to it. I was going to say, like, I mean, for me, I was drawing, but I wasn't doing comics, and I would just do random drawing, illustration, and it would just kind of go into a pile of stuff. And at a certain point, it's like, well, what's the point? If you're not going to share stuff with people and get out there, then there's really no point in doing creative work. So anyway.
What about writing? I mean, I love your art, but what really stood out for me with Horace Hoover was the writing. Horace's voice was fantastic.
Thank you.
The way he speaks, his vernacular. I mean, it made me love this character even more. And then as the story went on, I mean, it went places that I just didn't see coming at all. And, your writing is great.
Thank you. I mean, I'm a big reader. And again, I it's a lot of different places. I grew, like, by the time I hit 14, probably, I'm reading like philosophy, and I'm reading classic lit, and I'm reading all sorts of stuff. Like anything that would catch my curiosity, I would just do a deep dive into. Like I got into economics for like a decade, and I've read dozens and dozens of books on economics. And then it's like I have Sauron shifts, and it's like, oh, Roman history or something like that. And I just do like these really deep dives into all this stuff. So like I said, it's just like this combination of things. Now, I will say this, Horace H. Hoover is, I mean, I love words. And the one rule I have about Horace H. Hoover is I don't use any words that I don't know. Because I felt that if I had to use a thesaurus or something, it wouldn't be rhythmic. And I'm really big in my, like, the rhythm of speech. Like when I'm reading, if you don't have the rhythm down in the first page, I generally just toss the book and I won't read it. So that was my one caveat for Horace H. Hoover. And I just get to use a lot of big words that I don't get to use. And it just comes off as funny to me. Endlessly funny to me. Probably less funny to other people.
Oh, I don't know about that, man.
And I think, I mean, like when you're doing a book, it's like you have to entertain yourself first. Because if you're not, you're screwed. Like, it's over before it starts.
Yeah, you've got something good when you go through what you've just done, and you sit back and you're like, holy crap. That's I've had a few of those moments where I've just been like, wow, what the hell did I just do? How did I do that?
Yeah, and it's a great feeling. And I do think, I don't know, it's easier than people imagine sometimes. It's just like, just go with your gut, move on, and if you have to come back to it, you can change it later. Like the tagline for Horace H. Hoover is New York City's greatest space-time occult detective vacuum. That was a placeholder off the cuff. And I'm like, I'll come back to it later. And it just works. So you just like, you have to trust yourself enough, I think, to move forward and then just finish it. I think the other thing people get into is they endlessly revise and go back before they ever get to the end. I think that's just death. One little story, though. You were talking about having the confidence to move forward and stuff like that. I did the first short story, and at this point, I sent it to a couple of friends who, whatever, they don't care about it. And I'm like, I don't know. Is this garbage? I like it, but who knows, right? There is a artist called Walter Ostile. He's like big in webtoons and stuff like that. He has a lot of followers. Anyway, he had a YouTube channel that was big at the time. And he said, submit your book or your story and I will critique it. I'm like, this is a perfect opportunity to have like a pro look at my book. Right. I submitted it and he covered it. And I'm like, oh, I was so nervous, like, you know, when this video goes live. But the first thing he said, he's like, yeah, art, perspective, story, blah, 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 all on point. I can totally see this getting published by a major publisher. And I was just like, holy shit. That. And he had problems with my lettering, but that's fine. I'll go back and redo. Like, his issues were minor at best.
Right.
And I wonder if I didn't have that, would I have had enough confidence to move forward? I honestly don't know. Because you get stuck in your head and you're like, am I going to waste 3 years of my life and then just put out some garbage?
Yeah. And I mean, with me, it's like, it's not as much about, you know, am I going to waste time so much as like, who am I kidding? You know, like, it's not going to be good enough. You know, that's my self-doubt is, they're all going to laugh at you. You know?
I mean, and admittedly, not everybody likes Horace H. Hoover, so it's like,
who doesn't like Horace H. Hoover?
Give me their names. It's okay though, and I get it. It's not for everybody, and as long as some people like Horace H. Hoover and they kind of get it, and I know this sounds weird, but the right kind of person gets it. It's like I'm going for a certain kind of humor, a certain kind of aesthetic, and if somebody reviews it and they pull out that stuff as like the good stuff, I'm like, okay, the thing I was trying to communicate is being communicated. It would be terrible if all of a sudden, you know, somebody loves Horace H. Hoover because of his shoes or something that there's no reason for them to like it. So that's just a good marker that you're communicating whatever it is you're trying to communicate.
You know, the thing I really liked about the story was, in a lot of ways, it's played straight. Like, nobody ever seems to, they just accept, here's a guy with a vacuum on his head, either. And so what I still can't figure out is it a helmet or is his head actually a vacuum? And I don't think I ever want the answer to that.
I mean, I obviously do know the answer to that, and there are clues. There are clues in the book. I don't want to point them out because this is a point of like debate or mystery. Yeah, again, the British humor, just like playing it straight. I like that idea. I just like the mystery of the character in conjunction with the mysteries that he's actually trying to solve.
Well, it definitely adds to the humor, and it's a subtle way of adding to the humor. Because I hate to go back to this example, but the Tick, you know, in the series, like, nobody batted an eye about this guy dressed in this blue suit with these two antennae floating around. They would just say, "Wow, you're a big fella." Like, that would be the only thing that stood out, was that he was just, you know, he was 7 feet friggin' tall. And I know there's one where he was, they were spoofing Clark Kent, and he had a job as a reporter, and he's got a suit on, like, and it's unbuttoned and everything. You can see the blue underneath, and of course he's got his antenna going. No, yeah, let's just accept it. Just, you know, I love that stuff.
And I do think some of my favorite movies, stories, comics, there are elements of humor even in the most serious of times. Like, and I appreciate that, and not goofy like Marvel humor either, which I don't even consider humor most of the time. So I like. This is another way I put it. It's like if you took an H.P. Lovecraft story, like in Shadow over Innsmouth, and you replace the main character with Mr. Bean. And
that's life, right? Even in the darkest times of life, we find humor.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how my whole family deals with tragedy, is through humor. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, not at all. I totally agree, and it's something that I can't imagine writing a story without humor, honestly. I wrote this short story. It was prose, and it's a horror story for sure. I mean, but there are elements that are kind of laugh out loud funny. This main character it's a high school kid, blah blah blah, ends it horrifically, but in the meantime, he's going to act like a high school kid, like talking back to a teacher. I think it's unrealistic to imagine a person that doesn't make any jokes at all throughout their life. It doesn't, even the most unfunny person on the planet, and I know some of them, even are unintentionally funny.
And that's the best kind, is when people aren't trying to be funny, and you can get the biggest laughs out of them.
Yeah.
But
So
and I find it endearing to a character, in that situation. So
yeah, there's this do you know David Mamet, the playwright?
Oh yes,
great. He has a great book on economics, by the way, if you ever get a chance to read it. And he did a master class, which again I highly recommend it if anybody's into writing. The David Mamet master class is incredible. And the one thing he pulled out that I think about a lot is there's no such thing as character. There's only action. And because action reveals character. So if you just focus on the action, you can just infer a character from that. And I what? That's true. And because what that does, it forces you to not give exposition or, Horace H. Hoover, he's a funny, weird character. You unintentionally insert these descriptions of a person's character when that should only be described through the character's actual actions. Anyway, I don't know why I was just thinking of that. Well, the humor, I guess.
David Mamet. I mean,
the best.
Like I said, master writer, master baiter, maybe. But some of my favorite movies, I'm a big movie guy. I do read, but it's mostly history books. I'm more drawn to books about ancient history and just kind of weird history. I remember I got drawn early on into Masonic history and Templar history. And so the way you were about, all these different, subject matters, I am with different periods of history. And that's obviously influenced, my stories and my storytelling. But I love David Mamet. Have you seen Red Belt?
Red Belt? No.
Red Belt. That's one of my favorite David Mamet films.
All right, I'm going to have to check that out. Yeah, and I also think, you're like, you wasted a bunch of time. I used to think that too, that, oh man, I should have started Horace H. Hoover sooner. I should have done, but you know what? He didn't exist before. Mm-hmm. And it's I had to be at a certain point in my life for the character to actually be what it is. And for you, maybe it was, you got to a certain point where you read history and then this thing happened. So I understand what you're saying, but I feel like you have to, as a human being, you've really got to fill your head with a bunch of stuff. Sometimes it's random facts or knowledge or history, and all of that stuff kind of mixes together, and you get real writing as opposed to just, I don't know, tropey, cliche, just run-of-the-mill stuff.
Sure. What would you say is, since we're kind of talking about writing and we're really, I feel like we're really getting into the thick of, what we really want to talk about here. How do you start a story? We've kind of talked about how, these ideas just kind of stack, but when you are sitting down and you're like, okay, I'm going to make something out of this, let's go.
I sit on the couch, and I have 5 beautiful women, and they're all holding notebooks now. I sit on the couch and
son of a bitch.
I basically just start drawing. Okay. And I really start with shapes, and I don't have anything in mind. I'm like big shape, little shape, and things start to happen. Very much like Horace H. Hoover, the character, or the book bug. And once I have like a few, like, oh, that's an interesting character, or that's an interesting design, or something like that, then I think of a story beat that happens because of it. So it's back and forth. And then that story beat, I'm like, oh, what if there is a library with a house underneath? And then I'll go and draw the house. And then once I draw the house, it kind of like bounces back and forth. And then once I have a bunch of these sort of disparate, loosely connected things, I will do an outline because I have to make sure that there's some sort of structure. I'm not a pantser, as they say, entirely. And once I have that outline, I will do thumbnails, and I'll just kind of go back and forth, a little drawing, a little writing, a little drawing, a little writing. And I take about 6 showers a day because that's where I do my best writing. And I just sit and think. I can't remember the writer that said basically writing is just having enough uninterrupted time to think. And I totally agree about that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Hey, Crenshaw, how's it going? Scribe?
He only has 4. Damn.
You'll get there, man.
So, okay, so you've got like a pretty in-depth process there. I'm kind of chaos. My brain is just like, if you could hook a speaker up to my brain, it would just be utter chaos. Just, things constantly yelling different stuff. And so I know when an idea will just hit me, and it could be maybe an article. Like, so for instance, I read this article about, I think it was in Science Magazine, about how the James Webb Telescope has seen information, or they've gotten information from the telescope that suggests that in each black hole inside is a universe. And then, so then that would suppose that that would infer that our universe exists inside a black hole. And so I started thinking, like, man, that sounds a lot like servers on a massive multiplayer video game. Because I used to play some of those, and you could go and look at all these different servers that have all the same worlds in them, but they've got all different players and stuff. And I was like, wow, that sounds a lot like that. And I started thinking, like, that also sounds kind of like our universe might be a program. Maybe this is a simulation, and these black holes are like a firewall to prevent incursions from other universes, because you can't enter a black hole, nothing, and you sure as hell can't come out of one. And then I started thinking on a smaller level, like within our universe, there's these vast expanses of space between star systems, that's almost like another buffer to keep, alien civilizations from interfering with other civilizations. And I'm like, wow, that's like all these safeguards are put in place to prevent this kind of cross-contamination, if you will.
Yeah.
And so this idea popped into my head on how to turn that into a story.
That's interesting. Yeah, I do think like anything can just trigger an idea. I've always, for me, again, I'm a very visual writer. I'm like, show me a picture. I don't care what the picture is. I'll write you a short story about it. Like, if I stare at it long enough, is it just a house? Okay. And then I'm looking at the attic, and the curtains are slightly torn. What's up there? What was there? It's just, if you just need time to just sit and look at something. And especially now with, I know it sounds trite or whatever, cliched, with social media, we're like thrown in all these different areas, but just sit, stare at something for a while, and write the first thing that comes to your mind. One last thing, the one of the ideas that triggered the Horace H. Hoover stuff, I'm like, because what can he do? I don't know if I want to get into this, but I read some article about anytime you walk through an archway, there's like this weird psychological trigger. It like cleanses the palate, your brain. It's just like a weird psychological thing. And that's why a lot of times you walk into a room and you're like, why did I walk in here? I was supposed to get my hat or something. So it's a real thing. And at that same time, I was reading a book called Parallel Worlds by Mikio, which is a theoretical physics book. And he's talking about pocket universes. And it was just one of those things. I'm like, well, what if walking through a doorway, you're actually walking through the pocket universe, and that's why your memory or your brain sort of like resets at that point. Yeah. So it's just like taking these two random pieces of information and you put them together and insert them into your comic, and it's like ideas beget ideas beget ideas.
Sure, yeah. There's so much fascinating stuff out there too. That's I'm a big cryptid guy, so I've got I incorporate that into some of my stories. I don't know. Have you ever heard of the legend of the man from Tau Red?
No.
This is an event that supposedly happened. I can't remember the year. I think it was either the late 40s or early 50s, I think. And a man landed in Tokyo, Japan, from a flight. I think that's where he landed. And anyways, he didn't understand anything anyone was saying. They didn't understand him. They took his ID. His ID was a country that didn't exist anywhere. And they're trying to, like, all these borders and everything matched, but he's like, no, this is called this. This is called whatever. I guess that doesn't make sense if they said they didn't understand him. But somehow, and then he just vanished. And there's a lot of stories that are similar to this kind of thing of, people seeming like they're from a different reality will appear and then they just kind of vanish. And that plays a part in the Nostradamus Effect universe.
So do you have plans for like a series of books, or is it a world? Like what's the long-term plan?
It's a universe. It's going to be a connected universe. The Nostradamus Effect itself is a self-contained, like it's 12. I have it as 12 chapters / issues, and it will be a finite story. There won't be a part 2 or anything like that. I have another story called Sangre de Cristo. It's a like a noir style detective vampire thing that actually takes place in the same world, in the same universe, and at the same time as the events in the Nostradamus Effect. And
cool.
There'll be little like breadcrumbs here and there, but and then I've got another story called Luna Pactum. It's our werewolf. It's kind of the Wolfman meets Yellowstone, and again, it's the same universe. There is one similar thread through all of them, and it is this organization called the Order of St. George. And they're an ancient order that was founded by the last surviving members of the Knights of the Round Table, whose mission is to protect our world from incursions from this other dimension that is magic-based.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the noir vampire, like you said a bunch of words. I'm like, any version of those words, I'm like in, basically.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Vampires in particular, I've always been obsessed. It's just weird that I didn't write a vampire book, but I've read, I don't know, 60 books on vampires. Like,
wow.
Probably at least 30 from one author alone. Like,
no
it's just
kidding.
Something I'm obsessed with. Since I was a kid, like 14.
It's funny you say that because I usually loathe vampires. I see, and I guess I can blame Anne Rice for this. I've always viewed vampires as kind of like the Eurotrash of the of the monster world, like silk, suits with bright colors and chains, and or the track suits, doing the slab squat. Uh,
No.
Whereas I always wanted to be a werewolf.
Yeah.
Ever since I was a kid, I always wanted to be a werewolf. I've seen them as more like the blue collar monster,
That's
and your mechanics, your plumbers.
so. I will say this: there is a strain of vampires that are totally the Eurotrash vampire. The first thing that comes to mind, besides Anne Rice, which I read her novels, even though I hated them, is the Third Blade movie. Like, I don't know if you
Yes,
remember. Yeah,
yes.
it was so bad, so bad. But yeah, but even the bad stuff, I'll actually read and watch, and it makes me think I have some sort of a psychological issue at heart that I don't know what it is. Anyway,
Well, as long as it's just the characters that you're really enjoying, and not running around with the syringe and you know.
yeah, I've never like gotten a goth phase or anything like that. Yeah, I mean, I was into industrial music for a bit, but that's as close as you can get to becoming a vampire, I guess.
Well, it's funny you say that, because just to touch back on Sangre de Cristo, I got the idea when I was watching a documentary. I want to say it was the Learning Channel or something like that. And it was a documentary about people in real life who call themselves vampires. They say they are vampires. Now, they're not shape shifting or turning into mist or any of that stuff, but they will drink their partner's blood. It's consensual and all that.
Yeah.
And they consider themselves to be real life vampires. And I'm watching this with this friend of mine at the time, and I'm like, I go, so if they're vampires and they're admitting they're vampires, if I killed one, would I go to jail or would I be a hero?
Yeah.
And then my buddy goes, man, that would be a great slasher movie. And I was like, what? And that's where I got this idea for this story.
I love
So
it. Like that.
It's a serial killer going around killing people who are part of this subculture, and this detective's trying to put all the pieces together and figure out what's going on.
So this definitely shows your hatred towards vampires. Like, you're like, how can I just kill people that like vampires in a book?
It's definitely kind of like, this group is kind of Epstein-esque.
Oh,
So
interesting.
they're really terrible.
Okay.
They're the richest of the rich and powerful and all that kind of stuff. So.
Can I answer? Somebody said, I have to know why you hate Rice's vampires. So this is interesting, and maybe it's not interesting, but I think people get imprinted by a type of vampire. And for me, there was a series of books. I always talk about this. Brian Lumley had his books called Necroscope. And the vampires in that were like 10th century warriors, like they were crusaders, like cutting people's heads off. They were like the most ferocious, like just like badass vampires that you've ever seen depicted. Honestly, I don't think I've ever seen anything, including Dracula, depicted this way. So after reading like I said, I don't know, 20 of those books or 25 of those books, like switching to Anne Rice it was the 180 degree like version of that. And I just couldn't get over it because I'm like, wait a minute, that's not a vampire in my head. So anything that went against that, I just couldn't, it was impossible for me to accept. So it's not necessarily her fault. And ever since then, I've tried to find like cool vampires. And then you have the Twilight vamp. So there's like a whole gamut, I think, for vampires. So I know the Eurotrash is probably the most popular to some degree, but yeah.
I am proud to say that, and it pleases me greatly to be able to say I never saw any of the Twilight movies. I will say, and again, this is just my opinion. First off, I love the what's it, Francis Ford Coppola. He's
Yeah.
the one that did Bram Stoker, right? I love that movie. As terrible as Keanu Reeves' British accent is, I love that movie. Second only, you know, the runner up, for that is 30 Days of Night. When I
Oh,
saw that I didn't read the book. Again, I'm a movie guy. When I saw that movie, it blew me away. I was like, holy, like it. As much as I may hate vampires, that's one of my favorite horror movies.
yeah, that's great. I love that movie. I love the Underworld series too. Well, the first couple. The thing with the Francis Ford Coppola Dracula, I just rewatched it a little bit ago, and there are some just amazing cinematography moments in that movie that I think he's done a lot of first, and he doesn't get credit for it because some people don't like Gary Oldman and the romantic aspect of it, which I totally understand. But man, there's some really visual, incredible stuff in that movie, and I almost feel like there should be a different cut of the movie that just has like that vicious Batman. But anyway,
Oh man, that scene where they come into Mina's room and he's all vamped
yeah,
out and everything, and he's like 8 feet friggin' tall, and he sets the cross on fire, and then when he backs into the shadows and turns into the rats,
yeah, so
like
good.
I can watch that scene over and over and over again.
Yeah, I forgot how good it was. Honestly, even though I'm a huge Coppola fan, I hadn't seen it in a long time.
Yeah, it came on Netflix, and I just, I mean, I watched it like 85 years ago when it came out, but when it was on Netflix, I rewatched it, and then actually after watching it a couple times on Netflix, I was like, well, let me read the book, and I finally it was my first time reading Bram Stoker. And
Wow.
what did you think of Nosferatu?
Oh man, this is tricky because a lot of people like that movie. I wasn't a fan. I'll be honest. Now, I'm going to preface this with a few things. One, I've read the book at least, I don't know, 5 or 6 times over the years. I've seen every adaptation of the book. It's hard for me to watch a version of Dracula now because it's like watching the origins of Batman. I can't possibly sit through the origin of Batman and his parents getting killed one more time. I'll just lose my mind.
Sure.
So that's not the movie's fault. It was very difficult for me to watch. Now talk about like I felt that it was very one note. It was just like this. There was no humor at all. Not even like accidental humor. There wasn't any like moments of lightness. So it was just this very dark. And I have no problem with dark, but sometimes if it's just dark, then there's no contrast, and it's very difficult for me to like, I don't know, not get bored. Cinematography was great. There was a bunch of good stuff, but I think overall, it's not my favorite adaptation. I mean, I'll always like Nosferatu from the 20s, 30s.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, no, I after seeing that, I was like, well, I can see why Bram Stoker's estate sued the original filmmakers, of the original silent film.
Yeah, it's
But
it's
I loved it. I thought it was a great movie.
yeah, and so you know, again, that's partly my fault, but
I mean, you like what you like. I mean,
yeah.
it is what it is. All right, let's go back to let's tie back into to books. So, what we talked about setting up a story. What's been the hardest part about the entire process for you?
Writing in particular, huh? Um, I will say this. This is a weird fear I have. This is not a humble brag. I swear to God, it's not a humble brag. I have pretty good memory. sometimes oddly good. And my fear is that when I'm writing, I'm unintentionally lifting something that I saw, that I read 20 years ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like I saw that you play guitar. I mean, we've all been there. You've rewritten riffs
Yep.
that were actual songs, and you don't realize it until later. So that's actually a fear of mine. Oftentimes, I'll Google things, but that doesn't really. Has there ever been a story where somebody does? I mean, I always joke that there's like Portuguese Fabrizio is writing has already written everything I've done, and I'm just stealing, and I just don't know it. And one day Portuguese Fabrizio will come out and sue me for IP infringement. But
no, I agree. I get the same thing, man. I don't have a great memory. I'll tell you that. I got Swiss cheese brain, but no, I've thought the same thing, and I remember actually recently, like I tried to read it once when I was a teenager, and I just couldn't. I couldn't get through it, and I'm not a big fan of. I like Stephen King movies when it's somebody else making the movie.
yeah,
It seems that if he's involved with it, it ain't that great. Um, but except for Maximum Overdrive, I will say I do enjoy that's a silly fun thing. But I was talking to somebody, I was giving them deep insight into this whole all the lore with the Nostradamus universe, and so essentially what I've got these two universes that exist on different planes. I call one is the sister dimension, right? Where that whole universe is built based on magic and mysticism and all the fun stuff, right? And our universe is based on like Newtonian science, right? Like God intentionally made these two different. He made a bunch of different universes for different reasons, but ours are built this way, and they're very similar. And in nature, all things have a frequency with which they vibrate at, right? And these two dimensions vibrate at very similar frequencies. And occasionally these frequencies, they sync. And that's when you have what I refer to as thinnings of the veil, right? And that's when you'll have like sightings of Bigfoot and UFOs and monsters and all this stuff. That's when we see these things in our world and why. So I was telling someone, they were like, "Oh, that's just like the Dark Tower with Stephen King and he calls it this." And I was like, "What?" I was like, "I never saw the movie. I never read any of his books." And I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" And well, like, no, it's not exactly like it. I'm like, well, I'm taken from like physics and stuff. I don't know about Stephen King, so.
Well, first of all, I totally sympathize, but I'll say Stephen King even got busted for it because he had that movie, a book called The Dome, which was the Simpsons movie. One day they just put a dome, and it was like, I don't know how many years after the Simpsons movie came out, and he's like, I don't know what to think about the Simpsons. So if he can do it, like I really think, even if you have two people, like both of us, even if we started with the seed of the same story, we're writing different things.
Right.
It's inevitable. So how many vampires are there? Versions of vampires. So, but that does suck. Trust me, I have been there where it's like, son of a bitch.
Sorry.
Oh, you're good.
Well, we've been going for an hour now. Are you good to continue, or?
Sure.
All right, cool. I'm gonna put the ball in your court. Well, talking about, aside from writing, just the whole creation of comic book. What has been the most, I don't know, maybe frustrating, or just maybe not frustrating, but just the biggest hurdle to get past? Am I making sense?
Yeah.
I'll tell you, for me, it's been funding. I mean,
Yeah.
getting eyes on project has been the big one.
I mean, I'm the same. You were there. Like, getting issue 4 funded was by the skin of my teeth the night before. So, and I had a pretty low goal. So it is difficult to kind of get out there. And I will say, you have to get out there and not ruffle feathers. That's a thing, right? Getting sort of drawn into like feuds or dramas or whatever you want to call them. Not stepping on anybody's toes, not making people mad. Because, I mean, we all have thoughts on whether it's politics or news or, I like this movie, I don't like that. Everybody kind of gets ruffled, their feathers ruffled if they see that you're not aligned in some way. Sometimes it's just taste, though. It's like if I came out, I'm sure I have said I hate like the latest Superman movie, which I was not a fan of. But some people love it, and they're like, I loved it. I'm like, you loved it?
I loved it. I thought it was the first Superman movie we've gotten that was a true, honest to God follow up to Christopher Reeve.
It was since then, yeah, for sure. The other ones I don't really consider Superman movies, but it's just not something I liked. I didn't hate it, but it was definitely, I don't know, there was something off about it. I always blame casting. I think casting for the past 20 years has been the death of movies for the most part, even more so than the writing, because I think you can get away with subpar writing if you cast charismatic, really interesting people in these movies. Like you could have, I don't know, not that I don't want to talk about movies, but anyway, what was I talking about? I don't even remember.
We were talking. Well, I was talking about the hardest parts for me.
Oh, right.
As far as the Nostradamus effect, mine was, of course, getting eyes on the project. And
eyes on the project for me too. And it's like, I don't know how else to go about it other than the ways I'm going about it. Now, I will say this. It's like, okay, do you focus... If let's say I stream twice a week and then I'm posting, several times a day and then I'm this, the books aren't going to get done. There's no way I can, stream multiple days a night and finish Horace H. Hoover. So at a certain point, I had to be like, listen, I'm going to have to scale back streaming so I can actually finish my books, which sucks because it hurts me. Like I should be streaming. I should be getting out there promoting the book, but I won't have a book to promote if I don't, so that has been, the marketing and just the time allocation, because I do 100% of Horace H. Hoover. It's like,
right.
That's the toughest.
I want to say, first, of course, I know I started this whole thing saying that it's my favorite book of the year, which it is. If those of you who are watching or have been watching, if you haven't checked this book, if you didn't back it in the last go around, it is still available on Fabrizio's website, HoraceHoover.com.
Horace H. Hoover and Horace Hoover too. I think they both go to the same. They should.
It is a fantastic book. It's well written. The art is great. I know you talk about the colors. I loved the colors. The colors and the art. It took me back to the 70s. It has a very 70s vibe. I don't know if that's what you were shooting for.
Oh, 100%.
I mean, it had that vibe for me, and I love that era of comics and art. And it's just it hit a bunch of sweet spots for me, so to speak.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think we just tend to write or draw. We kind of pick up where you think you should have. So for me, it's like mid 80s. Like I don't want to say my ideal. There's been amazing books since then. Like, just because I say I like some 80s books doesn't mean I don't like a bunch of other books. But
sure.
Visually in my head, I still gravitate towards Bronze Age coloring and brushwork and all of that kind of stuff. So because of that, I'm like, okay, that's where I'm going to sort of pick up off after. So very intentional. I mean, admittedly, I started this in like 2018, so it's been a while. So, since I'm going to be doing a new series, do I change my style? Do I do different coloring? I think it's always a good idea to like kind of step back, squint your eyes and see, all right, do I want to continue in this direction or do I want to go somewhere else?
Yeah, absolutely. And that, because initially I was going to relaunch Some Big Lumberjack. That was my initial idea. Because when I discovered Ethan Van Sciver doing his Comic Artist Pro Secrets and talking about Star Wars and all that stuff, and I discovered he's the one that told me about crowdfunding. I'd never even heard of it. And I thought, holy crap, this is such a great thing. I looked at it as essentially like an online Comic-Con, and your campaign page is your booth. And so I got real excited about it. I wrote a script, I sent it out to our artist so it's Some Big Lumberjack. He rides a beaver, and our artist lives in Beaverton, Oregon. That is the planets aligning. That's awesome. Had it produced, he did the art and everything. I paid him. This is the first time I paid him money for it, and I just wasn't happy with it. And so then I stepped away. I stepped away from all comic book everything, and then now I'm back. I'm back for the attack. That's a fact.
I mean, honestly, though, I think most people should do that. There are times where, again, I saw that you play guitar, so my guitar analogies and metaphors hopefully hold. But I feel like when I don't play guitar for a couple of weeks and I sit down, that's my best chance of writing a good song, or like this. That's like your clean slate. And I think that's the way with writing or anything. Like I constantly step back. Luckily for me, I have different things I can focus on. So I won't draw, but I'll do writing tomorrow. That way when I come back to the drawing, it's kind of, I have fresh eyes on it and vice versa. So I think stepping back, man, people really should do it more often. Anyway.
Yeah, it gives your brain time to breathe.
I keep trailing off.
No, we're doing good, man. This is good convo. This is real conversation by real creators for real viewers.
Oh man,
this is awesome, man. So, what else is on your mind, brother? Do you want
to
talk about this thing you got coming up, or is that still kind of under wraps? Or
I can talk.
When did you? You kind of briefly touched on it. At what point were you like, yeah, I want to do this, and where has your journey been through all this time?
Yeah, I mean, for a long time. I mean, I did a short story here and there, and I tried to work with some people, and it always ended up failing inevitably. I'm a game developer. I was a game developer for many, many years. I tried to sort of mash my game development with my art.
Video games?
Yeah.
Oh, we got to talk.
So I thought it would be, I'm like, well, maybe I can, I'll use my sort of comic book style art in a video game. That way I'm sort of hitting both ends. And then I just remember waking up one day and I'm like, you know what? I still want a comic book on my shelf at the end of the day. As much as I liked working on games and this and that, I still at least need a comic book. And so I just totally shifted gears. I was also into 3D sculpting, so I do resin model kits and stuff like that. I switched 100%. I'm like, 100% of my focus now is doing comics. It was tough. It's tough to let go of skills and things that you did have, but sometimes I think it's the only way you're going to make progress in one aspect is if you really focus. So it's comic books 100% of the time. Moving forward, I don't know if that's always going to be the case. I think I'll always do comic books, but I may do some other stuff, in addition to. So I really want to get back into oil painting and stuff like that. So I'm just babbling now.
No.
Did I eat today? Is my blood sugar low? I don't know what's going on.
What about like collaboration with other people? Like maybe being a writer and someone else do the art, or vice versa.
Man, that's a tough sell for me, just because it hasn't worked out in the past.
Right.
And I love writing and I love drawing. It would be hard for me to do that, I think. I do want to finish my little book of short stories sometime over the next couple of years. That would be fun. But here's the thing about reading. People don't do it, and it's hard enough to get people to read a comic book that's 30 pages, let alone a book of short stories that's 200 or 300 pages. So
this is a nice comment here. A series of bats says, this is a really interesting conversation. I'm going to share it a few more times over the next few days to try to get more people to check it out. Wow, that is super nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm having a great time here.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I feel like the process of writing and drawing, to me, that's sort of endlessly interesting, because I can pick up anything from anybody. Like, there is no tip or trick or hack that won't help me. So talking about the whole process, I feel like is useful across the board.
So I got a question for you about, again, I'm circling back to Horace H. Hoover, but so the crowdfund that ended a month or so ago, that was for issue 4.
Yes.
So issues 1 through 3, were those crowdfunded also, or were those done through Alterna?
So the first 2 were through Alterna, and then the third was supposed to be through Alterna, and it was on the campaign and it was getting funded, and then I basically gave Alterna, I said, listen, I think this is going to be my last issue with Alterna. Giving him a heads up, that way, 6 months from now you would have, you could find another book, et cetera, et cetera. And he ended up pulling the third issue from the campaign. And that sort of forced me. I'm like, okay, so now I'm going to have to totally pivot. So I had to self-publish 1, 2, and 3. And that's what I did. I did not do a crowdfund for issue 3. I just did a mini little launch. I set a launch date for it, and the books were already printed, and you could come and order issue 3 whenever you wanted to. I don't know how well that did. I feel like you either, if it's a crowdfunder, you sell all at once. If it's just up on your store, you'll sell a little bit throughout the year. So it's I don't know long term what's a better approach. I think crowdfunding gives you the marketing push and the rally, you get from social media, for sure. So, yeah. And as far as issue 5, I'll definitely crowdfund issue 5 again, and then we'll see what happens after that. I'll do a collected probably of all 5 issues.
What are the specs on the book? I was thumbing through it. Number 4. I did a review on number 4.
Yes, thank you.
Last week, and I was just kind of feeling it between my hands, and so it's got a nice stout cardstock for the cover. What is that, 100, 110?
It's actually 80 for the cover
80.
and 60 for the interiors.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a little thicker. I was thinking about going 50 for the interiors, but I thought that might be a little too thin, and then the colors might, since my colors are pretty intense, that they really might bleed through to the other side.
Oh yeah, right. So did the cover have a laminate? Was it laminated or? Have any kind
No,
of
it was a matte finish.
Okay. All right. Very cool. Because I got a book recently that I crowdfunded. It came in and it was the cover had a very peculiar feel. It had like almost a velvety kind of feel to it. I felt like it almost felt kind of brittle, but it wasn't. I mean, it's a solid, real thick cardstock on the cover, but it just had a really strange texture to it.
I think I've actually tested those out because before I did issue 3, I went back to a bunch of printers and I had them. I don't know how many proofs I got with all variations, and I think that is considered like a suede or something. Is that what it? Not suede, but it almost feels like suede.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of it, but yeah, it's a totally different feel. I know generally covers are gloss, but I like the matte for at least Horace H. Hoover. We'll see about future stuff. There's a lot.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say I will say there's a lot more options now than there was even just 6 years ago for printing.
A real quick series of bats has a good question here. What do you think could be done to bring in a new, younger crowd to the indie comics?
Man, that is the eternal question.
Right?
Yeah, it is unfortunate that everybody kind of says the same thing, and it's like, manga is beating sort of like Western comics to a pulp. But then you have the recent sort of busting out of Absolute Batman. It's undeniable, the numbers of that book being sold. But I think that's because of the manga influence. So not making Western comics can't be the answer to bringing people into Western comics. This is going to be pessimistic, and I apologize for this, but I just don't think people read very much anymore, and it's just a shrinking of the market across the board. And the manga stuff, okay, yes. Do we put them in grocery stores? I don't think that's going to do anything. I just don't think, I don't know. You have competition with games. Who wants to read a comic book? And who would rather read a comic book than play a video game? We're just in a different time. We're in a different time. So competition, less reading. People really aren't enamored by a random, indie comic. So I'll be honest. I have no idea. I think it's gonna shrink and shrink and shrink. That's my guess. I don't think that even with Absolute Batman sales numbers, I think that'll pass for the most part, and we're just gonna, I don't know how small, it's gonna get really small.
Well, I'm gonna go cry, and no. I think Absolute Batman has exploded simply because it's not Batman. It's a completely new character that they've slapped the Batman logo on, and people are liking it, obviously. And it's something new, it's something different, it's fresh. But I think like you said, it's going to, like all things, it'll plateau. And then it'll start to, level out, and plateau is leveling out, but then it'll start to kind of peter. And I think what you'll see a big drop off because DC is, frankly, I think they're wearing the fuck out of it. I mean, everybody's your absolute title. You get an absolute title.
Yeah.
Everybody gets an absolute title. Like there's going to be an absolute Mr. Mixelplick or whatever. How the hell you say that?
Mixelplick, yeah.
Yeah,
they're going to keep going until it's utterly dead. And you are right. These characters aren't the actual characters that they claim to be. They're nominally the characters, and that actually the reason that should be like worrying to people is because that's the only way that they can sell these characters. like let's say for example every absolute title didn't have the character names. It wasn't Green Arrow, wasn't Wonder Woman or whatever. How many would they sell? 20,000, 10,000. So the only way that these companies can sell books is if they literally just slap the Spider-Man logo and the Batman logo on it. That is terrible. It's 2026 and you still can't come up with a new character that really has like an impact. You've got to make Green Lantern or Green Arrow a sociopath and a serial killer. That's how you're good. So it's short term, yeah, you're going to sell books. Long term, that is terrible. And the other thing, this reminds me of the Transformers book that came out recently with Daniel Warren Johnson, who is my artistic nemesis. But anyway, I read the book, and the art style is not really something I enjoy, but I'll read the book. It's Transformers. I love the Transformers. I grew up on them, and it's just one of those nostalgic things that I'll never let go of. Sure. So I read the book, first 3 issues, I can't remember what it is. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh, that was fun. And then I really thought about that. I'm like, if this wasn't Transformers, if this was, I don't know, random robot formers,
yeah,
would I like this? And the answer is just no. It's just no. So we're still pulling from those IPs to this day. And that should be really worrying for anybody in the comic book industry.
Okay, and I think that's definitely the case for the big two, right? But then you've got the other side of that coin is Image, and then what is it? What's Robert Kirkman's imprint he's doing? What is it?
Skybound.
Yeah, and now I know they're doing Transformers, they're doing G.I. Joe, and it's been successful there. But they're selling decent numbers. Another imprint that I've really been impressed with lately is Bad Idea. Are you familiar with them at all?
Sounds familiar. What books?
The one that I'm most familiar with, just because it's the one I've been collecting, is Planet Death. And it's written by the guy who wrote the screenplay for John Wick. And it has been it's sci-fi. It doesn't pussyfoot around. It gets right into the action, and the art is great. What else? I don't buy anything from the big two. I've never been a big superhero guy. Even when I was a kid, like I said, when I first started collecting, I was getting G.I. Joe and the Nam. I mean, yeah, those are both Marvel.
Yeah.
Those aren't your typical, things that a 12-year-old kid is getting, starting out with comics.
Yeah. So it's been a while since I bought any books. Like even the Conan stuff, the new Conan stuff, I'm not a huge fan of that. Like, unfortunately, I'm very lukewarm on anything new that I bought. It is what it is, and it could just be, it could be subjective to some degree. Unless I see something very original, my eyes just cross at this point. It's like, I don't think I can read another Batman book. I physically don't think I can do it. If I'm going to read Batman, I'm going to go read Year One again or something like that. But I'm not going to pick up a new Batman book. I can't fathom that.
Well, and I just speaking from my own perspective, I mean, what's the motivation for me to say, okay, I'm going to get into Batman, and I pick Batman 592 or whatever the hell ridiculous number it's at. Like, huh? There's like, is this even a starting point?
Yeah.
I mean, I think, and this kind of mirrors the manga method, if you will, is just doing, small arcs, small self-contained, you release them as a mini trade, maybe 48 pages, maybe go as high as 60 whatever, and it just have a self-contained story. You can There's no jumping in point, there's no having to worry about continuity. I'm reading issue 492. I don't have to have gone back and read 348 to know
Yeah.
what's going on. You know what I mean? I think there's an
Yeah,
element of that.
I think there is for sure. Like even if I used to collect comics, going back into it, like you said, where do I pick up? And it would just be random. And they're not great about catching you up, or it's all exposition. I just think the biggest weakness right now is writing, more so than art. I think there's a bunch of great artists out there in the mainstream. That's the caveat. I think writing is really an issue in the mainstream. Art is still pretty good. As far as indie, there's a lot of interesting stuff, art and writing. So I think it depends. Do you love comics, the medium, or do you love Batman and Spider-Man? I just think there's a difference. Do you love the medium and any stories that go through that medium, or are you just like, I love Marvel and DC and I want to wear my Batman shirt, and that's why I'm going to a con, that's why I'm watching the movies, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's a hard sell for indie books right now, like at a con or something like that.
Well, I look forward to seeing how that is, because I mean the reality is after 25 years, customer behavior changes. Audience behavior changes. So I'm sure it's not like it was, when I was in there doing it. I mean, we did as many shows as we possibly could. Luckily, thankfully, in the Dallas area at the time, there was a comic show every 3 months. There was one going on,
Yeah.
and then you'd go out of town, like Colleen, and we'd go down to Houston, and Houston was the furthest south we went. I drove up to St. Louis. I did a St. Louis con.
Jesus.
We would do Baltimore because it was a good excuse to go back home. We'd fly out to Baltimore. We would vacate. Well, my friends and I, we would all rent a beach house in the Outer Banks in North Carolina. We'd go out there and not do a con, but there was a comic book store out there. We'd bring books with us and sell to the store, and try to set up a signing while we're there. All kinds of stuff. So, but I'm sure it's totally different now.
You know, uh, there is part of me that thinks that even more so than cons, like you just said, taking your books to local shops might actually be the best route. Which I haven't, honestly, I haven't done that. But I feel like, for me, I have 4 issues of a 5 issue limited series. It's a hard sell for me to take 4 issues. But once I have 5, then I can give all 5 and see if they'll carry them.
I don't think you'll find it difficult. Most places are indie friendly that I have found. I have found that they're most of them are indie friendly. They'll have some places that'll want to do a consignment deal. I never went for that. I was like, look, just it's half off cover. No minimum. I tried to make it as
Yeah.
worthwhile as possible to them. I never had a place turn us down. Again, though, this of course was 20 something years ago.
Yeah.
But like, I to my local LCS now, I made a flyer for the Nostradamus Effect campaign, and I have the cover on it. I have a big QR code that you can scan. It'll take you to the campaign page, but I used the name of the comic book shop as a coupon code to get a. So if they use the coupon code, they'll get um, a free print, and with their order. Uh, and then with the store, I worked out a deal where, okay, whoever uses this coupon code, I'll kick back $2 to you, because it's like they're essentially selling it, right?
Yeah.
it's essentially the cover, what they would make off of selling a Batman or whatever for $5.99. Their
Yeah.
profit's probably $2 to $3. So ain't nobody bought it off of them though, but they were like, yeah, let's do it. They were excited about it, and they've got the flyer right there by the register. But I think you'll find that your local places will be receptive, whether you have all five or you just have four.
Yeah.
Especially, most places are excited to have a local creator, and like, we set up signings with all of these local comic shops.
Yeah.
And people didn't know who the hell we were, but we were entertaining, we were funny, we had a cool looking book, and it was always a good time.
Yeah, that's definitely an avenue of attack that I have not tried yet. But again, I will say this: I'm just doing 100% of this myself. The marketing is, that's a whole other part-time job. So
yeah, fact.
I'll do it in stages. I find out that's the best way for me, is like, okay, finish a book, market, finish a book, market. Because if I try to do at the same time, book will never get done.
I get so excited when I'm trying to okay, when you were the last day of the campaign, and you were like, we're not going to make it. And how close were you? Like $150 or something? Or
no, it was more than that. It was like $500-600. So it was pretty intense.
And I was like, no, damn it, no. You're not going to give up. We're going to make it. You're going to make it. And I was so pumped up. I was so excited. I got on X and I was like, you got to check this out. You got to check this out. This is a great book. Looks hilarious. And then other people were doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And, the community rallied and we made it happen. And so I just sometimes I leap before I look. And I sometimes after I'm like, oh crap, did I just like step on toes or whatever? But
no, I that was awesome. I mean, I did not expect it. Like you said, people really rallied that night before, and because of that focused marketing and push via social media, I made it. And I mean, the chances I thought were zero that I was gonna get $500-600 that night based on previous sales. So it was pretty amazing. Yeah, it was pretty wild. I
had so much fun, and seeing your face as you would check every so often, and that number would get higher and closer and closer. Oh, that was such a great friggin' night, man.
It was very cool. I'll end on a positive here. I will say that the sort of indie comic sphere and the YouTube overlap is mostly very cool and encouraging and just fun. I mean, the people I talk to in my sort of day-to-day life in my job, it is what it is, but it's great to have other people that like the same stuff or that you can just chat about these topics with. So, streaming and crowdfunding and Twitter, like it's a big sort of highlight, I think, for my experience in the past 6 years. Because before this, it was just, like I said, me in my room doing a drawing, sticking it on a pile, and then doing another drawing and sticking it on a pile.
Yeah. Well, I think we've been going for about an hour 40 here, and my kids are kind of getting a little restless, so I think they're wanting some papa time. But
no time. No problem.
Fabrizio, man, I want to thank you for coming on. Dude, this was such a great conversation. I've had a blast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was fun. Anytime.
All right. So anything you want to leave the audience with?
Yeah, just I would say if you're interested in Horace Hoover, go to HoraceHoover.com. I'm just starting, and I'll be streaming some inking and pages, Go to my YouTube channel. There's links on Twitter, et cetera, et cetera. So Thanks for having me.
We should do a stream where we talk about movies because you're a movie guy. I can tell.
Huge movie guy. I would love to talk about movies.
Awesome. All right, buddy. Well, thanks again for coming on. I had a great time. Everybody, thanks for watching. And remember to like, share, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and you can ring my bell. Ring my bell. All right. Thanks, everybody in the chat. Here we go. We're going to end the stream. I think I'm doing it right. Am I doing it right? Yeah.